Jen from 1,000 Words YouTube channel has tagged me in her photographer tag. What that means is she has asked me a series of 20 photography questions, including things on gear and just photographer experience, that she has answered in her own video, and you should definitely check it out. Jen's channel is really great. And she's asked me and a few other people to also do a video answering these questions. So let's go. The first question is, are you a hobby photographer or a professional who gets paid for photography? So I am both. I have been a professional photographer for many years, and I do get paid for photography. I've done weddings, I've done sports, I've done portraits, I've done children, families, all of that stuff. A few years ago, I decided to retire that part of my business and just concentrate on the parts of photography that really excite me. And that is exploring our beautiful world and going out and making vlogs for you and bringing you along and teaching people how to do photography. So in a way, I'm still being paid for photography through YouTube and also through workshops that I do, and occasionally I still do photo shoots for people that may ask me. So hobby, because honestly, photography it brings me so much joy and so much pleasure doing it that it's really hard to think of it as a job. Second question, how long have you been into photography? That one is easy. For as long as I can remember, I have always loved photography. Even as a young child, when we had, 120 film or whatever, really flash cubes and all of that, I loved taking pictures. What camera did you start with? So my first SLR camera was a gift from my father, and it was a Ryko camera. Now, I have this camera here that my father also gave me, but it is not the same camera that I had, the first one that he gave me, but it's similar, so I'm going to show you. Woo, look at this fancy camera case. So this one is a Nicorx camera, and like I said, mine was a Ryko, but this is pretty much the same type of camera. So you had your manual wind and your shutter button here to take the picture. Oh, I love that sound. Don't you love that? Listen. Woo. And then at the top I had the dial. Let me just show you. The dial for the shutter speed. And this was the crank for bringing the film back in when you were finished with the roll. And yes, this was 35mm film. I don't even remember how to open this anymore. Oh, wait. There we go. You'd load your film in the back, and you can see the shutter here actually when you take a picture. It's pretty cool. Hang on. It's pretty cool how it does that. Isn't that so cool? Okay, first camera was a Ryko SLR. I would get a roll of film. Maybe I would get 12 exposures. I would take those pictures, take them to the store, we would get them developed, and I was lucky if even one frame had any decent exposure on it, because I had no idea what I was doing and I didn't care. I know I wanted to take better pictures, but that just happens with time. And Jen mentioned a book in her own video, Understanding Exposure by Brian Peterson. That was the first book I read that helped me to learn what these things meant: shutter speed, aperture, all of that. What camera do you have now? Okay, so a lot has changed. I have a digital camera, a DSLR. I do not have a mirrorless camera yet, although I am planning that sometime, hopefully before the end of the year. I have the Sony A992. It is Sony's most recent DSLR camera with the highest specs on it. I love this thing. It's so great. It is a bit bulky, it is a little bit heavier, but it's such a capable camera. I love this. So how did I learn photography is the next question. So I already mentioned just the trial and error, the constant playing around with it and taking pictures, reading the book by Brian Peterson, Understanding Exposure. But how did I actually learn professional photography? I was out at the camera store making a purchase, and I ran into my own wedding photographer, and I asked him, would you be willing to train me in photography? And he said yes, he would. He was very excited. He said he didn't have any children that were into photography, and so this was something he was excited to do. So I went along with him on his photo shoots, and I did sort of like a second shooter thing. I would take pictures of my own. We would sit down afterwards and we'd look through all of the prints. This was still film time, and he would go over them with me, and he'd say, okay, see this picture here? You need to do this to improve the exposure. See this one? You need to do this to improve the focus. And it was fantastic. I'm really grateful for that. And it was an awesome way to learn. So basically like an apprenticeship. Where do you find inspiration? I have to admit, I find inspiration everywhere. Colors, tones, people's expressions, weather, landscapes, travel, at home. I can take pictures everywhere. I love it so much. And I really, really, really believe that there is a beautiful picture everywhere, and you just have to open your eyes to it. What is your favorite lens? This is my favorite lens. This is the Sony Zeiss 16 to 35 millimeter lens. And I love it because I really, really enjoy taking pictures with forced perspective, meaning that if I have a foreground element in the front, I love the way this lens makes it really pop out and just emphasizes that foreground and just brings in this wider picture of the landscape. So this lens is actually a newer lens to me. It was a secondhand lens. I purchased it. It is newer to me since I damaged my 24 to 70, which previous to this was my favorite lens. How many lenses do you own? So I'm not going to count my video camera, which I have one lens on, but I have the 16 to 35, I have the 70 to 300 Sony, and I have a Minolta 50 millimeter macro. I think, oh, and I still have the 24 to 70, and I sometimes will use it, but the lens is scratched, and so I do know that when I use it, I'm going to have to do some editing to make the pictures okay. So I have 4 lenses. What is your favorite piece of equipment that isn't a lens or a camera? I think that's pretty easy. It's definitely my filters. I absolutely love using my polarizing filter, plus I have a Nisi set of square filters that I can put on the front of the lens, and I really actually don't have a lot of filters. I have the polarizer, I have a 3-stop ND grad, and I have a 7-stop not graduated, a 7-stop ND filter. What is your most expensive piece of camera gear besides your camera body? So it would definitely have to be my lenses. So this lens was maybe $1,500 Canadian. I'm just guessing, it's been a while now. My 70 to 300 was about $900. I do buy my lenses secondhand whenever possible. The body is usually new, and well, that's not true actually. My previous camera to this was also a secondhand body. So I would say the lenses are the most expensive. What is your least expensive piece of photography gear? Now, that's probably this rocket blower and the chamois. These are just to clean my lenses and to clean the sensor, and you just spray on it, and it gets rid of all of the dust and everything, which is just, it's wonderful. I mean, it's less editing afterwards because I don't have a whole bunch of junk stuck to my lens. Cheap, and I wouldn't want to go without it. What is your favorite thing to take pictures of? Share a few examples. This is an awesome question, and I don't have a favorite. Just like I was saying, I could find inspiration everywhere. Okay, let me try and answer this. I love playing with light. Okay, so I know that's not really a thing, but you know, landscapes where there's light. So for example, this image here that's on my computer screen. I love the side lighting coming in and just lighting up the beautiful flowers on that bush. I'll show you a few more examples of images that I've taken that I love them because of the lighting. What area do you struggle most with? Share a few examples. So I would say that the area that I struggle most with is probably the editing of night sky photos. Now, I've learned a lot over time on how to edit them, but there are different approaches to editing night sky photos. And I think that the part that I really struggle with is that I don't want there to be a lot of noise in the image, but to be able to get stars and the beautiful things in our gorgeous night sky, the astronomy, it's very difficult to take an image that doesn't have noise, because you need to have such a long exposure and you need to bring up your ISO. So that's probably the thing I struggle with most. Question number 14. Do you shoot with natural light or artificial light? I shoot completely with camera and tripod. Which camera bag do you have and do you like it? I love my camera bag. I have the Loa Pro AW Pro Tactic 450 bag. There is a second version of this bag now. My bag is full of dirt and dust because of all of the landscape trips that I have done with it. It holds absolutely everything. It can get heavy if I overload it with absolutely everything, but I don't have to, and it's so versatile. There are different buckles and there's loops all the way along the bag and all the way around that you can attach something to any part of it, and you open it up from the inside. I love this bag. It is so rugged, it is so durable, and it's my bag best friend. What tripod do you have and do you like it? I love my tripod. It is on my video camera right now, but I can tell you about it. It is a Manfrotto 190 Go, and it is very, very sturdy. It is an excellent tripod. I've brought it with me everywhere. It doesn't move. I've used it for astrophotography, for 40-minute exposures, and my images are still sharp. What do you wish you knew, or what skill do you wish you had when it comes to photography? My next skill that I'd like to learn, well, I'm gonna get back to you on that, because next month I'm heading out to the Sony Kondo event 3.0, and we'll be taking a bunch of classes and doing a whole bunch of different things, learning with different photographers there, and it's going to be fantastic. So I am going to keep you up to date with that. I'm definitely going to vlog it. It's in Oregon for a couple of days, and oh, so excited. What is the next piece of photography gear you plan to purchase? So there's a lot of talk these days about the brand new Sony camera, the Sony a7R4, and I have been planning the next upgrade that I make for my camera is going to be a mirrorless camera, but I didn't want to upgrade from the A992 DSLR to the A7R3 because they're actually very similar in their specs and all of that, and it wasn't enough of an upgrade, even though there are upgrades to it. There wasn't enough of an upgrade for me to justify spending all the money. When I do spend the money, I'm going to hopefully go for the Sony a7R IV, and that's my plan. Share something you learned that changed the way you take or edit photos. Okay, well, definitely, and this is huge for me, what I learned was to stop thinking so much. When I think a whole lot and I want to make sure that I get something really awesome, which of course we all do, and I go out with plans, like heavy plans on, okay, it's got to be the right place, it's got to be the right time, it's got to be the right everything, that stops me from being my most creative. And I talked about this in another video. When I go out and I just go out with the attitude of, I wonder what's there. I can't wait to go and see. And this gets easier the more you go out, because you learn by experience that this is going to happen. You're going to go somewhere and it's going to be awesome just being there. And the more you go, the more you know that there's going to be lots of positives in this outing. And so you go with a fresh and open mind and you see what's there and you capture it. It's a lot more relaxing for me than the way I used to do it, and it brings me a lot more pleasure. And I find that I love my photos even more than I did before when I was trying to plan them out. Now, that's not to say that I don't plan. I do. I will plan, okay, I want to do a sunset, I want to do a sunrise, I want to do a long exposure, whatever, and I will go and I will pick a good spot and all of that stuff. I will plan. But the creative part, the part where I'm there and I'm really seeing what's in the lens and then adapting to what's there and trying to create something in that moment, that's what I don't plan. Last question. If you lost all of your photography gear, what are the first 3 things besides your camera body that you would replace? I think that one's pretty easy. I would definitely replace a lens, although what I would do is probably get a zoom with a large range from super wide to telephoto, because if I only have one lens, I need to have a range of options, and I know that would mean probably getting a lens of lesser quality, but I would start there. So that I would have the camera body, the lens, a tripod, I would have to have a tripod, and I think a polarizing filter, because I love it. I love what it does. I love all the different things you can do to the sky, leaves, forest, all that kind of stuff, the water. So Jen, I want to thank you so much for inviting me to this photographer tag, and thanks for coming along, guys. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. I love having all of you along on my adventures, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.